everybody, and welcome to Free UFC Bet Picks. Thanks for tuning into our show today. We are here talking about UFC Vegas 17, Thompson versus Neal, the last event of 2020. Really tough card, lots of close fights on this one. As always, we've watched tons of tape study. We watched the weigh-ins and stare-downs, so this is our quick post-weigh-in breakdown, bets, parlays, DFS advice. You guys know the deal by now, everything you need. This first fight we're looking into is going to be a bit of an extended look just into Christos Hiagos because he was just added to the card a few days ago and probably haven't seen much about him. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the fights here. Anything you want to say?
Nope, looking forward to it. This is a really weird card. You know, the main kind of favorites fell off, Bilal Muhammad, Rick Glenn. So it's a rough week for parlays. I think it's a great week for DFS. And it should just be there's some really close fights on the card. It's going to be just a really enjoyable card to watch, so looking forward to it.
Yeah. All right, our first one here is a catchweight bout at 160 between Christos Hiagos and Carlton Minus. Hiagos is 17-8. He's 3-4 in the UFC. Minus is 10-2, won no contest, and 0-1 in the UFC. These guys, it says they're the same height on Tapology, but we both agree that Minus looked way bigger at the stare downs. He did have shoes on, but not a 3-inch platform. So, but anyways, he does have the 3.5-inch reach, so it makes sense that he might be a little taller than they're saying. Betting odds have Minus at the underdog plus 260 and Hiagos as the favorite minus 320. What are you thinking about this one?
It's a really good one. Christos Hiagos is not a household name, but he's really good. He's fought a lot of, he's been in the UFC for a long time, fought a lot of really good fighters. In his last fight against Jacare close, it was a, close fight. He lost by unanimous decision, but he was, Jacare close was on a hot streak. He had just got finished beating Bobby Green and Lando Venata in back-to-back fights. Close was almost a minus 200 favorites. And it was a really good back and forth fight. Hiagos does a nice job. He's a very exciting counter striker. He likes to move away, circle around the cage. Even when he's not the taller, longer fighter here, he kind of fights like he is, and I think he's going to fight like the taller fighter here against Minus. Minus is kind of the opposite. He kind of presses the action in a slow, like an OSP, Jamal Hill type of low volume, low pace, low speed, but consistent pace. Just straight punches, and we'll talk more about Minus, but it's an interesting style matchup here. Like I said, Hiagos likes to be moving away, and then when he does counter, he counters heavy kicks, heavy overhands, combos. Really exciting striker. He'll throw the knee up the middle, and he was landing that on Jacare close. Really, Hiagos just gassed was his problem there. Before that, he beat Damir Hadzovic. Again, it was just Hiagos gassing was the problem. He won, but with about a minute left in the second round, he's looking up at the clock, and he was really putting on such a volume and landing such significant strikes in round one that it looked like he could have finished him, and then he just kind of gassed, like I said. In round three, Damir Hadzovic was on top like much of the round. So that's concerning, right? Before that, he beat Mizuta Hirota, unanimous decision win. And it was kind of just the nice striking that I'm describing. Before that was the Charles Oliveira loss that a lot of us remember. He was looking really good. Charles was checking the legs, though, and throwing heavy leg kicks. And both of these guys, Minus and Hiagos, are kind of heavy on the front leg. They're kind of susceptible to low kicks, and Charles Oliveira started landing those on him, and Hiagos kind of just got mesmerized. He felt like he didn't know. It looked like he didn't know what to do because everything that he did, Oliveira was checking it, countering, and anytime that Hiagos would try throwing punches, Oliveira was countering with a heavy low kick when Hiagos was super heavy on that front leg. Then Charles Oliveira started really feeling himself round two, throws multiple spinning back fists, a couple teeps, and Charles was just pressing the action. Charles just kind of outclassed him. But, that's the top level. We just saw what Charles Oliveira did against Tony Ferguson. And so, I think that's kind of an acceptable loss. It was just he just got outclassed. Other than that, Hiagos is normally putting it on really good fighters until he gasses. Minus, on the other hand, doesn't have the best gas tank. He showed good durability and okay cardio against, Matthew Semmelsberger in his UFC debut. But so really, it's the question of whether Minus can last long enough. And if he can, I think he's going to have a decent chance to steal a decision or maybe even finish Hiagos late. Minus has really nothing impressive about him. His his striking defense is really lackluster. He might do an okay job evading the first strike, but the second, third punches in a combo always land on him. He, when somebody throws a jab, he'll move away and like glide away, bounce away like a karate fighter, like unnecessarily far. He likes to look, like in his mind, he's got great footwork and great movement and evades the strikes. But that's like only the first strike, as I mentioned. I think he's extremely hittable. He's heavy on the front leg as well, like I mentioned. And, we just know he'd never fought anybody in the Alaskan circuit. He fought Rick Story. Rick Story's way past his prime at that point and still smoked him. But, he showed an okay performance against Matthew Semmelsberger. So here's the thing. Hiagos should absolutely slaughter him. We're looking for parlay legs. All of us, Hiagos, if he had any type of camp for this fight, Hiagos would just be like a no-brainer. And I still think he's pretty safe. I'm going to have him in some parlays. But if it goes late, Minus has okay cardio. He looked trimmer. Minus looked in better shape at the weigh-ins than I've ever seen him. And as Ali mentioned, at the stare downs, he looked bigger than this supposed 5'10" that they both are. These guys are not both the same height. When you see the pictures, though, if you just see a picture of their stare down, the height is not as pronounced as it may appear because, Minus had shoes on and Hiagos was barefoot, like she mentioned. So we got Hiagos. Hope that's a little bit, of good insight on him. He's a really exciting striker. He likes to bounce away. Minus likes to press the action. I mean, I think Minus, style-wise, striking-wise, Minus is a terrible match. Like, it's a terrible matchup for Minus, I should say. His style of just pressing the action with low volume, Hiagos is going to be putting it on him with diverse striking. And when Semmelsberger started mixing up the striking, that's when Minus had problems. When they were just doing 1-2s, Minus looked okay. But once Semmelsberger started throwing on heavier combos, throwing the high kicks in there, Minus had a lot of trouble. So I think Hiagos is safe. I'm going to have him in some parlays.
Yeah. I
definitely like him for DFS. But Minus looked great. Minus has been, had a full camp for this fight. So it's a little sketchy. I would just be careful with it.
Yeah. And if you do want to play Hiagos in your fantasy, he's 9,300, one of the pricier fighters. But and then Minus at 6,700, very cheap, but probably a total pass on him in fantasy.
Yeah, this is an interesting week with some of those heavier or more expensive fighters falling out, like Muhammad and Rick Glenn. Right. Especially in GPP games, don't spend all your salary this week. The optimal lineup is going to have a lot of guys in the 7,000s and 8,000s. There's only a couple fighters in that 9,000 range, Hiagos being one of them. So if this was a normal card or, there's 12 fights, if this was only a 10-fight card, Minus might be an okay play. The thing is, even if this goes to a decision, he's not going to land a whole lot. Even if he wins, he's just not going to land a whole lot. So I would say pass on Minus. Normally he'd be an okay punt play. With Hiagos coming in on short notice, Hiagos the one asking for this catch weight here so that he would have an okay time making weight. Right. Hiagos looked shredded. He looked fine. But it's just a little sketchy, coming in on short notice. So, but I do think Hiagos has a very good chance of finishing him here. So I think he's an okay play. I'll tell you this, when I was trying to build some lineups and looking at him, I wasn't able to fit in like Nchukwi and Hiagos, and I wanted to fit them both in. So I ended up passing on Hiagos and playing Nchukwi. That was a GPP lineup where I left some salary on the table. So I think Hiagos okay, but out of two lineups I played, one cash, one GPP, so far, Hiagos didn't make either one of those lineups.
All right. Let's move on to our next fight here. It is a flyweight bout between Jimmy Flick and Cody Durden. Flick is 15-5, 13 of those 15 wins by submission, and this will be his UFC debut after a Contender Series win. Going up against Cody Durden, who is 11-2-1, and he's had one draw in the UFC so far. Height about the same on these guys, but Flick does have a 3.5-inch reach. And then the money line here is Flick as the favorite at -154 and Durden the underdog at +130. What are you thinking about this one?
It's a close fight. You know, you guys have heard this breakdown for weeks now because this fight got canceled a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Flick's got definitely the grappling edge. Durden has okay wrestling. You know, he got Chris Gutierrez down and held his back the whole time. We've talked about Durden's low power ground and pound, though. Like, his ground and pound is just really just for show. Like, it's not doing any damage at all. He's got, you know, good back control, at least he did against Gutierrez. You know, he's shown it in a couple fights that he can keep guys down. But, you know, I think Durden's best path to victory here is to keep it standing. We've seen Flick kind of shell up like he did against Ray Rodriguez and just allows those punches to come. He's been knocked out 4 times in his career. So if it hits the mat, I like Flick. If it stays standing, Durden should have the edge. So, like I said last time, the pick is Flick, but I kind of wouldn't bet this one. I haven't been betting it, and I think they're both good DFS plays because they both have good opportunity to finish. This is one of the most likely fights to end inside the distance. It's one of the least likely to go to the judges. I think they're both good plays for fantasy.
Yeah, and if you want to pick either of those guys up, we've got Jimmy Flick at 8,700 and Cody Durden at 7,500. All right, moving on to our next one here. It is a middleweight bout between Tafon Nchukwi and Jamie Pickett. Nchukwi is 4-0 and all 4 by KO. This is his UFC debut after a Contender Series win. And Jamie Pickett is 11-4, 8 of those 11 by KO. So both of these guys, lots of KOs. And Pickett is also coming into his UFC debut after a Contender Series win. He also has a 2-inch height advantage and a 3-inch reach advantage. And the betting odds have Nchukwi as the favorite, -310, and Pickett as the underdog, +250. What do you think here?
Really exciting fight. You know, people are high on Nchukwi. This line seems a little bit wide, but Pickett is hittable. He's never been knocked out. Nchukwi, you know, has got a great Muay Thai career before he even moved into MMA. I'll mention this in the Dana White Contender Series fight. I didn't think he looked that great. You know, he was coming down in weight. Before that, he'd fought at cruiserweight against Chaos Williams. Or not Chaos Williams. William Knight. William Knight, who's another good UFC fighter. You know, they were both undefeated. William Knight was 6-0 at the time, and Nchukwi was 4-0. It was a really hyped fight. Nchukwi was trying to go for the takedown. William Knight was going for the takedown nonstop. Nchukwi didn't seem to hurt him early, but you could tell that he had the striking edge. William Knight was going for like 3 consecutive takedowns in a row, and Nchukwi was just fighting him off. He had an underhook and was landing short elbows and knees on him, and then he was started frame against his neck and was landing elbows and knees, body knees, and you know, just finished him fighting off the takedown. Hurt Knight, dropped him, finished him. It was really impressive. You know, Nchukwi's got great takedown defense. In the Dana White Contender Series fight that I started to mention, I didn't think he looked that great. You know, Al Mataveo, he was really being elusive. I'm trying to find a way to not say that he looked like a matador, but he really did. He was just really just moving out of the way so smoothly. Nchukwi looked a little slow, plotting, and was having trouble reaching him. And then I think it was just that fight, because if you go look at the Muay Thai fights, you know, he has good pop, but you know, in that Dana White Contender Series fight, he did not have good pop on his strikes. I haven't heard anyone else say this, so people are probably going to disagree, but he was really pushing his punches. He landed a nice just knee up the middle to the face on Mataveo, and that didn't seem to have any like hip twist. It wasn't creating action from the toe and twisting up. It literally just looked like he was picking up his knee. It didn't hurt him. You know, the high kick that ended it, he slapped him with his toes on the chin and put out Mataveo super cold. So it was just a little interesting, but his striking and his footwork looked a little slow and plodding in that fight to me. And but I think it was just he was coming down in weight for the first time. He made weight fine today. They both did, he and Pickett. So I think Nchukwi's safe. He's got impeccable takedown defense, like I said. Pickett's never been knocked out, but this could be the first time. But yeah, I just, people were so high on Nchukwi after that Dana White Contender Series fight, and I just was somewhat unimpressed. But I do think he's much better than Pickett here.
Yeah. And then fantasy, what are you thinking?
Think
playing
both,
either of these guys?
Yeah, I think they're both good plays. You know, Pickett is super cheap. Nchukwi is one of the most expensive guys, like up in that 9,300 range, right? And so, you know, This is one of the least likely fights to go to decision as well. I think they're both fine plays, but Nchukwi is in, if I played 10 lineups, he'd be in almost all of them.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next fight here. It is a women's flyweight bout between Jillian Robertson and Taila Santos. Robertson is 9-4, 6 of those by submission, and 5-2 in the UFC. Taila Santos is 16-1, 10 of those by KO, and she is 1-1 in the UFC. About the same height on these ladies, but Santos does have a 5-inch reach. And the betting odds have Santos as the favorite, they're pick'em odds. Santos at -112 and Robertson at -104. One of the many pick'em fights of the night, I believe. What are you thinking here?
It's a tough one. It's a classic striker versus grappler. 2 fights ago, we saw Taila Santos get taken down and held up against the cage too much by Mara Barella. But in her next fight against Molly McCann, she just looked like a totally different fighter. Santos said that she had kind of big, UFC jitters in that first fight. That was almost 2 years ago. She looked much improved, this summer against McCann. Mm-hmm. Robertson, on the other hand, we know her ground game, submission game, is just one of the best. So it's really just kind of which one you favor, the striker or the grappler. Most of the experts I've listened to, most of them are Canadian, but they're all picking Jillian. Mm. And I could see it, in these close fights, the grappling edge has been paying dividends in the women's fights. But I'm picking Santos. I think Santos is going to be able to keep it on her feet and or at least get up and should have the big-time striking edge here. And it's one of the few women's fights that is kind of expected to end inside the distance. So it should be a really exciting one. Yeah. It's a really tough fight to pick. I'm not betting on Santos. But if I had to, if you gave me a free play here, I'd go Santos.
And what are you thinking fantasy-wise? Could be interesting because it might end inside the distance. But we got Santos at 8,200 and Robertson at 8,000. So they're a little up there, but
yeah, I think they're both pretty good plays. I think they're both pretty good plays. They both have a definite path to victory. If it goes to decision, it's not going to be extremely high volume, I don't think, because, Robertson's not going to let Santos strike for 15 minutes. There's going to be a lot of takedown attempts, transitions, scrambles, get-ups. Right. So you're kind of banking on a finish by playing one of these folks, mm-hmm. But, I think they both have a chance to finish, so.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our next fight here. It is a catchweight bout at 195 between Deron Winn and Antonio Arroyo. Winn is 6-2, 1-2 in the UFC, and Arroyo is 9-3, 0-1 in the UFC. Arroyo does have 9 inches of height. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Wow. 9 inches of height and 3.5 inches of reach. And the betting odds have Arroyo as the favorite, -164, and Winn as the underdog, +138. What are you thinking here? It's
a really tough one. Deron Winn is Daniel Cormier's boy, and he's like mini DC, and he fights just like him. He's a stocky wrestler. Mm-hmm. It was a really good fight against Darren Stewart. Darren Stewart was putting the striking on him. His eye was all lumped up, but Winn was just going for takedown after takedown after takedown. It was like a pattern. If you fast forwarded this fight, it was just like a rinse repeat of takedown, get up, back control against the cage, and then Stewart gets away, puts the striking on him, another single leg, takedown, back up against the cage, get up. So Winn can get anybody down, but he can't really hold people down that well. And when he has them down, he does 0 ground and pound because he's so desperately trying to hold him down. He's an okay striker. So, 2 fights ago, he beat Spice Lee, and it was striking the whole time. So then, like I mentioned, he goes in and does nothing but wrestle against Darren Stewart, gets the split loss, even though he controlled like 10 minutes of control time, I would have to guess, because like I was describing, it was just a pattern of him getting the takedown and holding him against the cage. But Darren Stewart got the split win there because, the time that he was able to strike was so effective. In the next fight, Deron Winn's fight against Gerald Mearshart, he was on top guard in round 1, and he got up voluntarily. He was afraid of the jiu-jitsu, and then he spent the next round and a half striking until Mearshart hurt him with hands and gets, rear naked chokes him. So, I really like Arroyo here. He's huge. It was funny because he weighed in right after Winn, and then he weighed in right before Nchukwi, and he looks like a giant even compared to Nchukwi, a former cruiserweight. So when Arroyo's got good jiu-jitsu, great striking, good leg kicks, and Deron Winn is susceptible to the low kicks. So I really like Ahoyo here, but if it just kind of depends on what game plan you're going to see from Win. If you
Right.
see that nonstop, desperate takedown game from Win, he's actually got a chance to draw this out to a decision and get some control time. But I think Ahoyo should be a wider favorite here.
Yeah. And what are you thinking about fantasy plays?
I do like Ahoyo. He's 8,900, right up close to that most expensive range, right?
Right.
The thing about Darren Wynn, even if he gets a couple takedowns, like he's not going to do any more scoring. He's not going to get a bunch of ground strikes. So it's just you're just really getting points for those takedowns. He does have, like I said, he allows people to get up. So you can score really high if you just get a bunch of like 8 takedowns. It's going to score you really high.
Right.
So I think they're both just okay plays.
Yeah.
I'm really heavy on and confident in Ahoyo to win, but at that price, you're banking on him to finish Win. I think he will finish Win. So I think they're both just okay plays. Obviously, I like Ahoyo more than Win, even though he's much more expensive.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have a women's bantamweight bout between Penny Kianzad and Sijara Eubanks. Kianzad is 13-5, 2-1 in the UFC. Eubanks is 6-5 and 4-3 in the UFC. Reach about the same, but Kianzad does have about 3 inches of height on Eubanks. Betting odds have Eubanks as the favorite, -146, and Kianzad the underdog at +124. What are you thinking here?
It's a really, really tough one. Kind of another striker versus grappler. Pena Kianzad has shown nice takedown defense, right, against like Jessica Rose Clark, who's a monster, against Betch Correa. But when she does get taken down, she does not have good get-ups. So it's really just a question of if she can stuff all the takedowns from Eubanks. Like, I don't think she can. I think Eubanks, I think this line's about right. I would just slightly lean towards Eubanks.
Right.
So I wouldn't bet this one. And I would. It's a DFS pass as well, especially Eubanks being a big favorite. Definitely pass on her. Kianzad might be an okay play, super salary saver type of thing. But either way, I think this is going to be a low volume. I don't think Kianzad's going to knock out Eubanks. I think whichever one, if you do bet on one of these fighters, pick them to win.
Right.
But this is a tough one. They're both solid. Eubanks is getting up there in age. Kianzad has more striking talent. I just, when she does get taken down, she doesn't have good get up. She's not going to submit Eubanks.
Right.
So I think Eubanks is going to win a decision here.
All right. Let's move on to our next fight here. It is the headliner of the prelims, a welterweight bout between Anthony Pettis and Alex Morono. Pettis 23-10, 10-8 in the UFC. Morono is 18-6, 1 no contest. And in the UFC, he's 7-3 with that 1 no contest. Height and reach relatively the same on these guys. Pettis the favorite at -215, and Morono the underdog at +180. Who do you have here?
Big Pettis fan, have been for a long time since the WEC days. I hope he wins. I like him a lot. And we try not, usually when we're giving picks, we'll talk about just the pick straight up and then give a betting advice based on the line, right? But
Right.
this one, like, I just cannot. The line is just so wide that I can't ignore it. I think Morono is just incredibly good value. Morono should have the wrestling edge. Back in the day, Pettis had great wrestling, takedown defense against some of the best wrestlers in the UFC, right? But it just, and Pettis said he's taking things more seriously. He used to be partying a lot. He hasn't drank or smoked weed in like months, he said. So we should see, an improved Pettis. They both look great at weigh-ins. Moreno's a little bigger, a little taller, as we know. It's just such a tough one. It's really such a tough one to pick. The thing is, Pettis, even when he wins, he knocked out Stephen Thompson, but he was losing. His last win was against Donald Cerrone. It was a close fight. Some people think Cerrone won that fight. Before that, 2 fights ago, he lost to Carlos Diego Fajeda. That's Morono's teammate, and Morono said that he feels like some extra confidence coming from that. They've already game planned for Pettis. The game plan worked. I think we might see Morono take this down to the mat here. And I think Morono won't be extremely outclassed in the striking. The smaller cage kind of favors Morono's pressure game, and it it doesn't favor Pettis' movement and footwork, which, of course he has the edge there. So I just think I think this should be like a pick 'em fight. I like Pettis a lot. Hope he wins, but gosh, and I just think Morono's got too many opportunities to win here. I think Morono by decision is a decent bet. I don't think Pettis is just going to knock out Morono. We just saw Chaos Williams knock Morono out. But, and then Reese McKee was having limited success. But Morono's striking just looked really good in the Reese McKee fight to me. That's Reese McKee, not Anthony Pettis. You can tell I'm still struggling with this one. I think it's just a dog or pass situation. If you're going to bet on it, Morono's great value. But if you're just trying to pick I think Pettis should have the slightest edge, minus 130, plus 100 is how I would line this one.
And what are you thinking about fantasy plays? Morono's only 7,000 and Pettis 9,200.
Yeah, Pettis is super expensive, and I don't think he's going to knock him out. He's not extremely high volume. He's a little flashier. This Morono matchup reminds me of the Edson Barboza matchup, where you're Barboza's not going to let Anthony Pettis finesse or sizzle or dazzle his way to an exciting victory. He's just too hardy. He's too meat and potatoes, and Barboza's just going to walk him down and throw leg kicks and just be heavier. And I think Morono has a similar just style, just forward pressure. He's not going to wilt. He's not, even if Pettis lands a couple cool spinning techniques or, some high kicks, I think Morono's going to walk through it. So I don't think Pettis is a good DFS play at 9,200. I think Morono is a really good one at 7,000.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our main card. It is a heavyweight bout between Marcin Tybura and Greg Hardy. Tybura is 20-6, 7-5 in the UFC. Hardy is 7-2, almost all of those by KO, and 1 no contest. In the UFC, he's 4-2, and that 1 no contest. He's got the 2-inch height and 2.5-inch reach advantage. Hardy is also the favorite at minus 118, Tybura at plus 100. I think this was pick'em yesterday when I looked at the odds, but yeah, Hardy's a slight favorite now. What are you thinking here?
It's a really tough one. Tybura should have the ground game edge. He likes to hold guys against the cage. He likes to kind of lay and pray. He's not that boring, but he likes to just use that control game. He's definitely going to have the jiu-jitsu edge here. He's a black belt, and it wasn't too long ago where Hardy was getting held down by guys, but I think Hardy's improving at fast enough of a pace, specifically on the wrestling and grappling game, that I think he's going to have his opportunities to get up. Tybura's only lost 6 times, but 4 of those were by KO. The money's coming in on Hardy, as you mentioned. It was a pick'em, but the money's coming in on him.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to ignore Tybura's technical advantages. So this is another one of the fights that's most likely, according to the odds, to finish inside the distance. I kind of think Tybura by decision is really possible here. So it's a pick 'em fight. If you like Tybura, pick him by decision. I think Hardy does have the opportunity to knock him out, though. The pick is Hardy. I think he's going to get up. It's even if it's just strength. I think he's going to have his opportunity to get up. Tybura didn't look that. He looked a little pudgier than normal, to be honest, at the weigh-ins as well. Hardy, we know how bad he wants to be champion. I think he's working hard. I do expect improved cardio. We know Hardy's had cardio issues in the past, but and Hardy kind of has this reputation of being first round knockout or bust. That's really inaccurate. He's won multiple decisions in his last few fights. So yeah, I think Hardy has just the slightest lean that way, that he's going to have enough opportunities to get up. That his striking power will pay dividends, but I'm not betting on it at all.
And fantasy,
I think they're both great plays. Tybura, if he wins, it's likely a little lower volume, but he should get multiple takedowns. He does actually ground and pound because he's got good enough ground game to hold guys down and ground and pound at the same time. So I think they're both good plays. And heavyweight fights like this that are expected to end inside the distance, you want exposure both ways, right?
and if you do want to pick either of those guys up, Tybura is 7,700 and Hardy 8,500. All right, let's move on to our next fight here. It is a bantamweight bout between Marlon Moraes and Rob Font. Marlon is 23-7-1, 5-3 in the UFC. Rob Font is 17-4. He's 6-3 in the UFC. Font also has the 2-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Betting odds have Moraes as the favorite at -158 and Font as the underdog +134. What are you thinking about this one?
It's a really good one. You know, I'm kind of concerned about Moraes coming back so fast. It was just 2 months ago where he got clipped by Sandhagen on top of the head with a high kick and, you know, got finished. He also broke his orbital bone in that fight, as a lot of folks remember. You know, Sandhagen was telling him about it during the fight. You know, he looks shredded, but I think Rob Font's got a really good opportunity to win here. Moraes keeps gassing as well. You know, if Font can withstand that early barrage, I think he's got a great opportunity. You know, 2 fights ago, Moraes got that split decision win over Aldo. It was Aldo that had the cardio edge in round 3. So, you know, Rob Font's been around a long time, fought good competition, and he has no trouble going the distance. Even, you know, like 5 fights ago when he lost to Pedro Munoz, he was doing great in that fight. You know, Pedro Munoz didn't have a whole lot for him. Munoz was busted up and just kind of surviving. Munoz just started landing some heavy hooks that turned the tide. And one of them ended up it was like a body hook, head hook combo. He threw 2 of them in a row. That kind of got Font's attention. And then Font was backing up, not pressing the action anymore against the cage. A 2-hook combo hurt him bad. And he ends up shooting in on that sloppy takedown and gets guillotined. But he was looking great against Pedro Munoz even. You know, so we know that he's got knockout power. I'm a little concerned about Moraes' durability, really concerned about his cardio. I think Font's a great underdog pick here. This literally could be a week where, like, 9 underdogs win. Not even kidding at all. Yeah. I think if you just bet on every underdog this week, at least half of them are going to hit, and you're going to end up way up. That's a wild week. So, but I do think I'm pretty confident in the Rob Font pick.
Yeah. And what are you thinking about fantasy? We've got Moraes at 9,000 and Font at 7,200.
Font might be like one of my favorite plays. I think that's one of the craziest values on the whole slate. You know, I don't hate Moraes at 9,000. If you played 10 lineups, maybe put Marlon in one of them. But for me, it's mostly a pass, you know, because he's $9,000 and, you know, I think he's going to lose.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our next fight here. It is a welterweight bout between Michel Pereira and Chaos Williams. Michel is 24-11, 2 no contest, and he is 2-2 in the UFC. Chaos Williams, 11-1, he's 2-0 in the UFC. Height about the same on these guys, but Williams does have the 4-inch reach. And betting odds have this at a pick'em. Williams at -102 and Pereira at -116. What are you thinking about this one?
People have been looking forward to this one for weeks.
Yeah.
I've been saying it. I'm really excited to not have really any bets on this because I just want to watch it. Like, do yourself a favor. Play both these guys in DFS to where you're hoping for a knockout one way or the other. And just don't bet on it. Don't ruin this fight for yourself because it's going to be amazingly exciting. You know, Michel Pereira doing a somersault and some breakdancing at the weigh-ins, like as they're about to stare each other down. You know, Chaos is a no-nonsense type of guy. He didn't seem to think it was very cute or anything. But Pereira, we've seen him show more maturity, a more technical game, a better fight IQ in his most recent fights. You know, back in the day, he was just doing ridiculous stuff. You know, of course, he was winning against Diego Sanchez and then got too sloppy, hits that illegal knee, and Sanchez, you know, took the way out. But even in Pereira's last fight against Zalim Mbadayev, there was some heat at the weigh-ins and stare-downs. They were pushing each other big time. And I think, you know, Mbadayev might have even put his hand on his throat. Like, it was pretty, like, intense stare-down. And, you know, Pereira looked great. He kept his poise during the fight. He ended up getting that rear naked choke round 3. It was kind of a weird sketchy tap or whatever, but he was just putting it on him. So even in that intense fight where they had some beef at the stare downs, you know, Pereira kept his cool. I think he's got the kicking edge and slight wrestling edge here, and he has to just not, you know, get knocked out. Chaos Williams also has shown improved fight IQ. He thinks that, you know, Al Hassan was a more dangerous fighter than Pereira. He thinks this is going to be an even easier fight than him for him than his last fight. But it's just a really tough one. I got Pereira just ever so slightly. I think the kicking game, just the all around game, his movement, and if he needs to, the wrestling and grappling is going to get it done for him.
And thinking they're both very decent DFS plays here. We've got Pereira at 8,300 and Williams at 7,900, so not too bad of prices either.
No, yeah, high exposure both ways. One of the most likely fights to end inside the distance. Should be a high volume affair if it does go to decision. Like, don't expect a whole lot of grappling, even though I mentioned that I give Pereira the edge there, and it could come in important. But I don't expect this fight to go to the mat, right? So.
Yeah.
It should be a high volume striking affair until somebody gets knocked out. Yeah, definitely be playing both of them.
Yeah. All right, moving on to our co-main event. It is a bantamweight bout between Jose Aldo and Marlon Vera. Aldo is 28-7, 10-6 in the UFC. Vera is 18-6-1, 10-5 in the UFC. Height and reach about the same. And Vera is the slight underdog plus 130. Aldo the slight favorite minus 154. What are you thinking here?
Really good one. This kind of has Figgy versus Brandon Moreno vibes written all over it. It's the dangerous, lights out Brazilian knockout artist versus just like a really hardy, durable, tough Mexican fighter who we think should have an edge later in the fight. Figgy ended up looking great round 5. In my mind, absolutely won round 5. Not to talk about Figgy, but thought he got absolutely robbed. And but hypothetically, we're thinking that if Brandon Moreno could survive, he would have the edge later on and might even finish Figgy late. It kind of has that same vibe here. I did mention that Aldo's looked good. His cardio is. I think people are giving him more grief about his cardio than he deserves. I think he looked really good against Jan, and in the fight before that against Moraes, he had better cardio than Marlon did in the third round. Aldo's a fast starter. He comes out guns blazing, and Chito Vera is kind of a slow starter. He likes to learn about what his opponents are doing a little bit, and then he turns it on late. So it's really just like that second round. I really think it comes down to the second round. That 1.5 mark, 7.5 minutes in. Like, who has the edge around that point? If we just look at their former competition, 2 fights ago, Vera lost to Song Yadong. I think Aldo is definitely going to win here. He's one of the few guys that I feel confident enough to put into small parlays. Like, we're keeping the parlays super cheap, super short this week, but I think Aldo's going to get it done.
And what are you thinking about fantasy? Aldo at 8,600 and Vera at 7,600.
I think they're both okay plays, but honestly, I think this fight's going to go to decision. Neither one of these guys is going to get finished. They both have finishing power and potential, but they're both just so durable. I think either one, whichever one of these guys you pick, I think you might want to pick them by decision. And I think they're both okay plays. It should be a high volume striking, 15 minutes. So I think they're both okay plays, but I don't think we're gonna see a finish here, to be honest. So I would have like some exposure to these guys, but if you played 10 lineups, maybe 3 Aldo, 3 Vera, 4 with neither.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our main event of the evening. It is a welterweight bout between Stephen Thompson and Jeff Neal. Thompson 15-4-1, 9-4 in the UFC. Neal is 13-2, 5-0 in the UFC. Height and reach about the same here, and pick 'em odds, they are exactly the same at minus 108. What are you thinking here?
This is a really tough one. Similar, they both like to strike. Similar kickboxing game, of course. Stephen Wonderboy's got just different style than anybody else with his movement, his side kicks, just his all-around kicking game. But they both have similar kind of approach. Neal might have a little bit more power. Neal likes to throw some head kicks and stuff like that, but of course he doesn't have the kicking game of Wonderboy. But it should just be a really exciting fight. Neal likes to press the pace going forward. Wonderboy likes to move away and strike. I think Wonderboy needs to hold his ground, not back up. And if he just stands toe-to-toe, it's not the best idea. Neal's got the power edge, but that's kind of what Wonderboy needs to do, because it's been getting him into trouble when he just evades, and then ends up getting caught. You know, he was beating Anthony Pettis and just didn't put it on him. He looked a little too timid in round 1 when he was winning, and then, you know, gets caught round 2, I think it was. You know, against Vicente Luque, it was an even fight. He was moving away. Luque started having some success, and then Steven just stopped backing up, stopped evading, and held his ground. He was actually pressing the action forward and just put it on Luque. You know, it was kind of a... I hope it was a change that we've seen in Wonderboy. He kind of needs to do that to a certain extent here. Again, he's got to be safe. Neal's got knockout power. I think the longer the fight goes, Wonderboy has the edge. You know, he's gone 5 rounds multiple times. Jeff Neal was scheduled for 5 rounds, like against Kevin Holland, but he kind of just gassed, and Kevin Holland knocked him out in the 3rd round. Neal was going for a ton of takedowns in that fight, not doing any damage. And Kevin ended up, it was a couple body strikes, like a body kick and then body punch. And then he lands like a lunging overhand, and you could see that Neal started protecting his body. Neal thought he was going to throw a 3rd body strike in a row, and Kevin lands this huge, like, lunging overhand on him. And then Neal was against the cage, and Kevin Holland just throws a bunch of hooks and finishes him. But it was a little bit of the cardio that we saw Neal have a weakness to there. That was a while ago, of course, you know, but you know, it was his last loss. So it's worth noting, you know, the body strikes. Thompson can definitely put those body kicks on him. It's just such a tough fight, as the odds indicate. It's really the question of, is Stephen Thompson gonna get knocked out or not? If he doesn't, people think he should, you know, outpoint him. But he can't just evade the whole time and let Jeff Neal walk forward the whole time, because that looks really good to the judges.
Right.
Such a tough fight to pick. I'm taking Thompson. I think his, you know, just his experience, the people he's fought are so much better, obviously. And the people that Jeff Neal's been fighting and finishing recently, they're the complete opposite end of the spectrum of Stephen Thompson. They're exciting, unorthodox brawlers like Mike Perry and Nico Price. Last time he fought a clean, technical, long, elusive striker was Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland was putting it on him. Neal couldn't get him down, and then Kevin Holland ended up, you know, the body damage did it for him, like I said. So you don't want to brawl with Neal. I know I'm saying that Stephen Thompson can't just evade the whole time. You know, he's got to find that right balance, right? Because, you know, Thompson just... He should have every edge here. I think he's even got the grappling edge. Neal's very strong, lower center of gravity. He might get Thompson down, but I think Thompson's going to get up just fine. You know, so Pettis knocked him out, but other than that, no one knocks him out. And that was kind of a fluke. I won't call it fluky, but it was a one-punch knockout right on the button when Thompson was beating Pettis the whole time. Other than that, he fights, you know, murderous Darren Till, Jorge Masvidal, Tyron Woodley. They can't knock him out. You know, I think Wonderboy is going to be durable enough, experienced enough, have enough wrestling that he's going to outpoint Jeff Neal and probably win a decision.
Yeah.
But it's close. I mean...
And what do you think in fantasy? Thompson at 7,800, Neal at 8,400.
I think they're both great plays. I like Thompson, you know, as I mentioned, because I think he's gonna I think he's gonna win, and I think he's gonna do that with volume. If Neal wins, it's gonna be by knockout. They're both low price, and I think especially in cash games. So if you're doing a double up or a 50-50, stack these guys, which means play them both in the same lineup with 4 other fighters. You know, we recommended you do that in the Jack Hermanson-Vittori fight, and they set the record for significant strikes in a middleweight fight.
Yeah.
It was a huge, you know, stack opportunity. This has similar opportunity there to be a 25-minute striking affair with 2 reasonably priced fighters, and they both have knockout power. So, you know, if you stack them, you obviously want it to go to decision, but they're both great plays. You could even stack them in cash, not in GPP.
Yeah. All right, that's a wrap on UFC Vegas 17, the final UFC event of 2020. Should be a really exciting one here. Anything else you want to say?
Trying to think, you know, so the parlays I've played, Jose Aldo's in some. It's just really, really, really tough.
Short parlays.
Yeah,
This week.
and Chukwi, Jimmy Flick is in a couple, Hiagos is in a couple, you know, but Draco Rodriguez falling out, Bilal Muhammad falling out, Rick Glenn falling out, really hurts those parlays. So also, you know, I like Amanda Ribas to plug into futures with Conor McGregor. So there's so many good fights in January. Don't blow through your bankroll on this last card. Enjoy it. And we'll be popping out the final parlays on Instagram and Twitter. If there are any more, there's a couple overs that I think are really certain to hit. So we might have some more like over unders mixed into parlays. But yeah, just keep them short, keep your bets small, and thanks for watching. Thanks for the support. Happy holidays.
Yeah.
And we're excited for this card.
And if you don't already, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at free UFC bet picks. Same name for everything, pretty easy. All right, thank you guys so much for watching, and yeah, happy holidays, and we will see you guys at the next one next year. Bye.